Hey, MCE crew, our potato head in chief, aka Joe Biden, has said that we're going to be facing food shortages. Now, we've known this. This audience has been talking about this issue for a while now because we know how to read the tea leaves, okay? I hope you can hear me over this wind. Anyway, what we're going to be doing here is planting some fruit trees. I always told you that you need to be as self-sufficient as possible. So we're going to be doing some things here to boost our food security. All right. We already have some stuff going here and have for a while, but we're going to bolster that. We're going to augment our ability to not just replace calories and sustain ourselves in that way, but also give us an ability to trade with others here in our area. For example, if we produce, well, we will produce much more than we'll be able to consume, even after we store food, okay? So we don't want to sit around and eat, potatoes like, the poor Irish had to do back during their famine. We don't want to have to do that in perpetuity. So we're going to find partners and folk here in our area who produce an abundance of, say, corn. There are a lot of people that produce corn around here. And see if they'd like to set up some trading relationships for things that they don't have. I'd encourage you to look into that. Remember, if you don't have acres and acres, so what? Doesn't matter. There are all kinds of ways. And this is not a gardening channel. But you can look out there and figure out how to maximize the space that you have so that you can bolster your food security for you and your family. Because Biden is not the only one to say this. Emmanuel Macron over in France, he warned his people of the same thing. And President Xi, we did the video a while back where he was talking about this. Chinese Communist Party was also talking about this. So this is the world over. Doesn't matter what ideology, what political philosophy these countries observe. Food scarcity is going to be a thing. And we need to know how to navigate within that. So there are plenty of farm channels on YouTube. Now they've tried their damnedest, and by they I mean the media, to demonize prepping or being prepared. I want to point out something very important. Every single thing that we talk about on this channel, this channel focused on financial independence, everything we talk about is going to see you in good stead, whether we have the next Great Depression or whether or not we are in for 100 years of a golden financial age, okay? Either way, you're going to be okay, because the things that we're doing are fundamental, and the things that we're doing are not based in the accoutrements of wealth. We're not worried about red bottom shoes. I always mention red bottom shoes because that's something that folk were crazy over for a minute for some strange reason. Bring your shoes to me. I can paint them red, and it will be a lot less expensive, I promise you. Hey, to each his own. But look, that brings me to another point. Even if you don't have an abundance of land, remember, you can watch these channels all over YouTube. You can go to the library, do whatever you need to do to figure out how to maximize your, what you do have. Okay, there are some scenarios where if you got a balcony, you can, make certain things happen. So don't think because you don't have an abundance of land, you're stuck. You can't do anything. There's plenty you can do. You just got to be resourceful. Okay, so before we head in, look, this is what we're doing here lately. We got some nectarines. We got a couple of apple. Granny Smith is one of the apple trees that we got. We got to do the cross-pollination thing with the apple trees. We're going to plant a lot more stuff, again, to, really augment what we're out here doing already. I believe in this. I want to show you all this because I want you to understand I'm not just talking. I am practicing what I'm preaching, okay? So it's a little windy today. It's going to be very, very cold Monday and Tuesday. It's a Sunday right now. So we're going to put these in the ground on Wednesday because we're going to have a good stretch. I think we'll be done with frost and freezing temperatures after Wednesday. And even if we're not, we could still protect these trees if we need to. Okay, so I'm going to bring you along on part of this journey as we go through it. But let's go ahead and get into the actual mechanics of this coming food shortage.
Let's talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well. And because both Russia and Ukraine have been the breadbasket of Europe in terms of wheat, for example, just to give you one example. But we had a long discussion in the G7 with both the United States, which has a significant, the third largest producer of wheat in the world, as well as Canada, which is also a major, major producer. And we both talked about how we could increase and disseminate more rapidly food shortages. In addition to that, we talked about urging all the European countries and everyone else to end trade restrictions on sending limitations on sending food abroad. And so we are in the process of working out with our European friends what it would take to help alleviate the concerns relative to food shortages.
Okay, guys, you just heard him. And look, let me say something. I derided him and wrote him pretty hard in the beginning of the video. Since then, I've seen another video, the one where he's sitting with the soldiers over in Poland, and he's like in a cafeteria. And if you can go out and find that video, I'm not going to post it here. If you can go out and find that video, when I watched that, God just struck me as pitiful. I mean, he's pitiful. He needs to be in a situation where he is enjoying his golden years. Look, I'm not a fan of the man, okay? But he has accomplished a lot in life. He was a senator. He was a vice president. And whatever else he may be, it does seem like he is into his family, okay? You can even make the argument that he's so into him. That's why we're seeing what's going on in the Ukraine right now, his family and money. Let's just be honest. But right now, at this stage in his life, he is pitiful. And so I'm going to continue to criticize him. Hell, he has the big chair, and his family put him up there, and they're okay with it. But I'm not going to savage him, okay? Because he just strikes me as pitiful. And a sitting American president should never be seen as pitiful, okay? In fact, if you go back, I don't know if you remember Reagan, okay? Some of you may. But as soon as Reagan left office, he left the world stage. And you literally didn't hear anything else about Ronald Reagan until he died. And the reason for that was because he was losing his faculties. He had developed dementia, and I doubt if at the end there he even remembered that he was president of the United States. I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing Joe Biden, but I think that it's clear what's going on here. Now, I am also proceeding from the standpoint that he will continue to be president until the next election cycle. Okay, I think he'll be defeated by, I think anybody could run and defeat him. But I think he's going to stay in there. And the reason for that is, what's the inverse? I mean, what do we go to if he's not there? Do you know, as bad as things are right now, we could be in a situation where if Kamala Harris had to step up, we would long for Joe Biden. Okay, I really believe that, because she doesn't have the excuse of, being a septuagenarian. She doesn't have that excuse. She's just not qualified, okay? So right now we got an old bus driver who may have missed the step, but at the end of the day, he has driven a bus for 50 years. Kamala Harris.
I'm in danger.
Okay, so anyway, let's get into these food shortages. Listen, you know what you got to do. It's not rocket science. If we're going to have food shortages, then you're going to have to do two things. You have to figure out how to store food for you and your family. And storing food is, of course, about you being able to eat and feed your family. But it's also about you being able to stabilize prices. Because, look, this is a financial independence channel, as I said earlier. And what we need to do is, as these prices increase, we got to always figure out a way to maintain our ability to acquire assets. Okay, so as prices increase, it could make that more difficult. So we've always got to be focused on how we mitigate these inflationary aspects of the economy and maintain our ability to acquire assets. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is you really got to start figuring out how to produce some of the calories that you need and some of the nutrition that you need and your family needs. Now, I always stress this. The folks who live in an apartment, okay, or a townhouse, and you got a little postage stamp lawn in the back, well, you may be able to do something with that, with raised beds. But again, I've covered the community garden thing on this channel a couple of times. All you have to do is reach out to, I guess your county or your city, and they'll probably have a list of locations where these community gardens are. And then you need to get educated, and you need to commit yourself to being able to have at least a portion of your caloric intake, at least a portion of that provided by you. Okay. Now there's some channels on YouTube, Ice Age Farmer. I think it's either Ice Age Farmer or Ice Age Gardener that I watch. There's a channel that is subscribed to this channel, Hawaiian Prepper 808. Okay, and I find her channel extremely interesting because Hawaii is in the middle of the Pacific, and a lot of what they receive has to be shipped there. Now, Hawaii was an expensive place to live even before 2020. And she did a video recently about some of the price increases that are going on there now. So it's interesting to see how people throughout the world are dealing with these interesting times. But look, he's talking about these food shortages, and I'm reading here from tastingtable.com. The U.S., meanwhile, is a major wheat producer, as is neighboring Canada. Since President Biden is calling on nations with ample grain reserves to assist in humanitarian efforts, it's expected that the U.S. and Canada, as well as countries like Australia and India, could help offset the wheat shortages from Russia and Ukraine. Now, here's the thing. Just like oil, grain is a global market. It's a globally interdependent market with folk, exporting the grain that they produce. Like we talked about Hungary and how they have put the brakes on grain exports for now because of the high degree of uncertainty in the world. Grains, of course, are going to include wheat, corn, basis of the food chain. Chickens, pigs, cows, goats eat it, we eat them. So when you constrain that supply, and with regard to the actual supply, we're looking at Russia and the Ukraine accounting for 30% of worldwide wheat exports and 20% of corn exports. Now, there's nobody harvesting wheat and corn in the Ukraine. I'll be damned if I'd be in the middle of a field harvesting some wheat when there are, bombers flying overhead. Not me. So we've got that piece of it. And then you've got all of these embargoes and sanctions set up on Russian goods. So we're looking at 30% of wheat and 20% of corn being disrupted on this global market. So what's that going to do? Well, while some of the parts of the United States did see food shortages, I can attest to this because here in Maryland, we saw food shortages during the pandemic. We certainly did. I was going to the food store, and there were certain things that I would normally be able to pick up. I mean, real chicken, beef, okay? And they just didn't have it. And I'm talking about major grocery chains, okay? And I visited 2 and 3, and they just were out, okay? This is going to drive up the price because we're taking a big percentage. In the case of wheat, we're taking like a third of it, almost a third of it offline globally. So that which remains is going to be, the demand is going to stay the same, but the supply is going to drop. So what's that going to do? That's going to increase price. So if you're able to find certain things in the grocery store that you need, you can best believe that the prices are going to increase on top of where they already are now. Now, whose fault is that? Now, if you listen to the administration, the White House is saying that, oh, that's Putin's fault. They're trying to blame the whole damn thing on him with regard to inflation that began 18 months ago. They're trying to blame it all on him, not on the fact that they printed up trillions of dollars and threw them out onto the street. The fault for this lies totally at the feet of the Biden administration. Okay, I refuse to believe that. I find it just incredible that the president of the United States is giving so much credit to a foreign leader, Vladimir Putin, in terms of the state of our economy right now. Okay, he's basically saying that this whole thing, everything we've got going on over here, is just on a knife's edge, waiting for Putin to make a move. And he made a move, and it all came tumbling down. And now we're facing food shortages. Okay, this is another aspect of the pitiful nature of Joe Biden. Lately, he's actually suggested that we take out Vladimir. He's calling for regime change, and I think that was a hell of a slip up, man, because that could be construed as a reason to cut off all diplomatic relations, and that would really exacerbate the situation that we find ourselves in. From the standpoint of war and from the standpoint of the economy. Look, you need to be prepared for this. Prices, as I've said in a couple of other videos, these prices are not going to go down. That's not going to happen. At some point, they may stabilize and not go up as precipitously. But do not sit out there waiting for a drastic decrease in prices correspondent with the level and the pace at which they increase. That's not going to happen. So what that means is that in addition to being able to become more self-sufficient and food secure by participating in a community garden, storing up food, using the land that you have to create an edible landscape, in addition to doing those things, you're also going to have to continue to make it happen in terms of the ability to invest, okay? And investing, as I always say, you guys know where I'm going. You're going to have to invest in those things that are going to be resistant and resilient with regard to inflation. So the S&P 500, for example, it has done gangbusters in the last 2 years. We'll see what happens this year. It's not guaranteed, but you've got to look for those things that have the potential to perform in excess of inflation over time. Okay, S&P 500 did over 16% in 2020 and over 24% in 2021. Now, as you average it out, we should end up somewhere in the neighborhood of a 10% return, 8 to 10% return for the S&P 500. Okay, now hopefully inflation will not continue at these levels, because if it does, then you're going to need a better return than that. As far as holding on to your purchasing power, well, you can definitely invest in gold. And I use the term invest loosely when I say gold. Gold is a preservation or hedge vehicle. Okay, let me go back to the S&P 500. I want to stress this. There are products out there that will allow you to take advantage of and participate in the growth of the S&P, and also insulate you from the, if let's say we have a terrible year and the S&P loses 10%. Well, there are products that will have you just go to 0%. You won't take that whole ride down. If you have questions about those, let's talk about it. You can leave me a note in the comment section, or better yet, go to mcenow.com. mcenow.com. I don't know what mce.com is, so don't punch that in. You might get a surprise. All right, guys, so this is where we are. Bread's going to become more expensive because of the wheat piece. Everything is going to become more expensive because I want to tell you something about corn, too. In the United States, keep in mind look at the gas pump next time you go to the gas station. It's going to say something quite probably about a percentage of ethanol that is contained within that gasoline that you're pumping. Now, Brazil They did the ethanol thing with sugarcane. We're doing it with corn. We have a corn-based ethanol by and large here in the United States. So not only is corn the basis of the food chain, but it also plays a part in the production of gasoline here in America. Gasoline's already high. What do you think that a constrained corn supply is going to do to the price of gasoline on top of the sanctions, on top of that Russian oil that's been taken offline? Now, and again, who fills up the trucks that are bringing your vegetables, your meats, your dairy to the grocery store? So you think they're going to take that hit? I own the trucking company. I can tell you that gets passed on. Okay, it has to. Okay, it gets passed on to you. So you got a lot of pressures on you right now from an inflationary standpoint, guys. But we still got to, this is part and parcel of the financial independence journey. Remember, I always tell you, it's a journey, okay? It's not a point at which you get to and then you don't have to do anything else. This is something that needs to be maintained, like a battleship or, you know, a warplane. You don't just fly, or your vehicle. You need to maintain it, okay? So this is where we are in terms of navigating this current situation. It's not always going to be roses and, you know, smooth sailing. But there's always a way to navigate these waters so that we can always end up staying on that road to financial independence, okay? So just some food for thought, pun intended. All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon. To learn more about how you can achieve financial independence, check out these videos we recently posted on the Money Changes Everything channel.